Guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video. In today's video, it's a pleasure to be joined by Thomas O'Toole. And on Fight Week, how are we feeling?
Yeah, feeling good. Thanks for having me on. I have a tough fight now this weekend, but I'm looking forward to it. I've had a good training camp and, I have a good team around me. And obviously you would have seen I have a late enough replacement, but fighting a world-class fighter. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's a great opportunity for me on a good platform. And yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm excited.
Do you believe this late opponent perhaps could be a tougher test than that of what you were going to have?
Oh yeah, for sure. This guy is, like I said, he's world class. He's been in it with the best of the best. His experience is up there, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it because it'll show me where I'm at in terms of world level, and it's definitely a step up. This guy he fights anyone, and he comes to win. So I'm expecting 10 hard rounds. Yeah, so it's gonna be good.
And you just said, of course, it was a 10-round fight. And I suppose, yes, you had to get the late replacements, but were you still very eager to make sure that it was 10 rounds, that you weren't dropping it down to an eight or a six rounder?
Yeah, because like this is a historic event, fight night at Fenway, first time in 70 years. It's live on the zone, so for a main event. So for a main event, you can't of a show of that caliber. It has to be at least 10 rounder. And I got the right opponent for it as well. I think he only fights 10 rounders. Like he goes in with the best in the world for 10 rounds. So it made sense. It ended up working out perfectly, getting this replacement. And yeah, like I trained for 10 rounds, and that's what I wanted.
And obviously, like you said, it's a historic event at Fenway Park. First time in 70 years since there's been an event there. And how did the opportunity come about? How did you hear about it?
So it's just my promoters. I'm promoted by the Nolan brothers, Matt and Mark Nolan, and you know, I signed with them just under a year ago, and they have big plans for boxing in Boston, and they have big plans for me, like, and they wanted to do a big event, and they haven't even been promoting for a year now, and they're doing this at Fenway, So they, I know they were talking about it, I think it was around January, February, and there's a lot to go into it to get it over the line, but I knew they would because they're really determined and ambitious. And yeah, they got it confirmed there about mid-March, and yeah.
Do you feel like what they're doing with Boston Talent is, really showcasing a target in which hasn't been pushed enough?
Yeah, so they're really investing in the game. They're putting on the fights people want to see. Boston obviously has they have a lot of promoters. It's a big boxing city. Um, but you'd have promoters that would, they wouldn't be putting on great fights. They're just trying to make a few dollars off shows, like, whereas these guys they want to put the best against the best, especially locally.
Mhm.
You had my last fight in February. I fought at James Perkins. That was a huge domestic fight. That was probably the biggest domestic fight they've had in a while. Like of that caliber, and I was meant to fight the next big guy, Lauren Humes. He's 11-0 with 11 knockouts. As for this main event, he's from Mass as well. So that was kind of going to be it, and then I was going to be done with the kind of local scene. But he pulled out, and I don't think he's really interested in fighting me. So we stepped up to, like I said, kind of world level now. Like, this guy I'm fighting, Vaughn Alexander, he's a real gatekeeper for world level, so this is a big test for me, and I'm hoping to get through with flying colors.
And what makes you think that your previous opponent that pulled out isn't interested in fighting you?
So I know we were meant to fight in August. So this was the first time I got in touch with the Nolan brothers. They asked me, this Lauren Hume said he would fight you. Are you interested in it? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. It was a huge domestic fight. And kind of once I agreed to it, then he had pulled out or there was something wrong. He couldn't do it, so that was fine. We then it was March. They said, okay, let's try and get this fight over the line again for Fenway, historic event. And I said, yeah, let's do it. And they were going back and forth with him for a while. He was just saying no, no, and then I called him out, and they upped the money they were giving him. They were really paying him well, and they kind of called his bluff. He said, "Well, I want this much." I think he was thinking they wouldn't do it, and they're like, "Yeah, let's do it." So then the fight got agreed, and it's funny. My coach actually, Mark DeLuca, said he's not going to fight you. He knew he was going to pull out, and I was like, no, no, he's getting paid well. He'll fight. And then 2 weeks before the fight, he pulls out. So I know, like there could be a serious issue there, and I'll never bash any fighter because it takes a lot to get in that ring, and it's a lot of people can't do it. So I hope he's all good and well. But yeah, I don't think it's a fight I'll be pursuing really in the future because I don't want to be wasting my time. I want to be moving on.
And talking about how big this event has been or is going to be, it's on with Dazn, and I suppose for yourself, do you feel like it's about time that you're getting this major recognition?
Yeah, it's this stage is set perfectly for me. Fenway, the zone, the opponent. It's up to me now to deliver and put in a good performance so the world takes notice. I've been building over here, maybe a little quietly, but I've built a lot of support and following in Boston. Obviously I have a decent support. I have very good support in Ireland, and I'm building that big support here. And yeah, hopefully this fight will propel me onto the world stage.
And obviously, you've touched upon, being in America, but also having the support from Ireland. And I suppose, which place is in your opinion, a preferred place to fight? Do you prefer fighting out in Boston, or are you more comfortable fighting in Ireland?
Well, most of my professional career has been in America now. I've relocated here. I'm comfortable here.
Mhm.
I had my homecoming last year in Galway, and it was great. It was definitely the best night of my life. Like,
Mhm.
fighting in front of my home people where I'm from it's a real blessing, and hopefully I'll do it again. But yeah, I'm comfortable out here right now. This is where I'm kind of building my career, and this is where it's at. The scene in Ireland really isn't as big as you would have here, like, and the opportunities are here. The exposure. So I'm enjoying it here, but I'm hopefully I'll get home soon for another fight.
And is that why you went to America to fight in the first place? Was it to try and further your boxing career?
Yeah, so I had originally signed with a manager out here, so I had all my fights out here, so I was flying back and forth, and I said, I'm just going to move out because I needed to start upping my sparring and things like that. I had a great team in Galway, uh, but I needed that more exposure to the pro scene. I need to be sparring professionals more, and I can see the difference in my game. I've really developed over the last 2 years in terms of the pro style. So it was a good move for me.
But of course, you had this homecoming in Ireland, and I'm sure it was still a great moment for you. And I suppose, will you forever still be true to your Irish roots?
Oh, it was like I said, it was the best night of my life. It was unbelievable. It made me think of all the years of hard work I put into the game. Like, that just made it worth it. Being there and having everyone screaming for me in the celebration. It was good. Like, it made me very proud to be from Galway. Like, and yeah, like the goal is to go home someday. And like I said, I'd love to get a fight there as well. Like, maybe a stadium fight, a big fight for my supporters back home. That's where I'm from, and that's like I love Galway. It's my home, and yeah, hopefully I'll get there soon.
And I've read some previous kind of interviews about you from early on in your amateur game, and I suppose, at this point in your career, did you ever think back then that you would be able to at least, even get to this point in your career?
Yeah, I suppose thinking of when I was a teenager,
Hmm.
I wasn't having the best of luck with it. And I probably wouldn't have thought I'd be in this position I'm in even right now.
Hmm.
Um, But then as I started winning titles, I knew, I have potential in this game, and I can go far if I put my mind to it and I have the right team around me, especially in the pro game. It's different to the amateur game. It's tougher. It's a business. It's the right people in your corner is very important to get to the top.
And again, I was reading this about your amateurs and hearing some injury problems in which you were having. And I suppose, was that difficult to get through at the time? And have you had too many issues with that in your pro career so far?
Yeah, the injuries when I was an amateur were bad. Kind of ruined my whole progression as a youth
Hmm.
up to the age of, I think I got a bad shoulder injury when I was 13, 14, and I really didn't get going again till I was 18. It was bad, with mess ups with doctors and then needing surgery, and then maybe it was on my part of not doing the rehab correctly and stuff. It it really hindered it, but yeah, it hasn't affected me that much as a pro. I've been blessed without too many injuries. Every camp you get like niggles here and there, like because you're training hard for 8, 10 weeks at a time. So you're gonna get little things, but nothing too serious, thank God.
And I suppose now at this point with the training in your career, do you believe that you are more disciplined than you have ever been before?
Hmm. I feel yeah, I definitely hit a mark when I was maybe 19, 20
Mhm.
with my discipline. I finished my school and I went to college and I started training full time with college. And then I was like 21, I started working too, so I had to support myself. So I was doing all of that. Like it was tough, but I had the vision and I knew I wanted to work hard. And even now I'm out here and it's all go, no breaks. Like, it's almost like no fun. It's just go, go, go. And I like it that way, because the way I see it is sacrifice now and it'll pay off in the future.
And I mean, definitely. And I don't know if you are still with this team, but I know that Celtic Eagles have played an important role in your career. And I suppose what is the story with them?
Yeah, so that was my gym back home in Galway. So I started out as a youth in Connemara with Connemara Boxing Club under a man named Coleman Flaherty. He was great for the area. He got a lot of kids into it, and he got me into it. And look where I am now. Like, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be boxing at all. And then when I was like 17, 18, and started college, I moved into the city. I needed to up my training and up. My goal was to at that time was to become national champion. So I knew I had to do something different if I was to do that. So I started training with Celtic Eagles, Pavel Popko, and yeah, the rest is history. I was with him I think 7 or 8 years, and we won a lot together. We yeah we worked hard and we traveled around the world, and yeah, we did good.
And has that power, obviously you've been knocking out a lot of guys in the professional game, and I suppose has that power always been something you've carried, or is that something which you've kind of honed throughout your career?
It's definitely something I've developed over time. I was never really a big power puncher, but when you're training so much and years, like you develop a bit of a pop on your punch. I started probably when I was 21, 22. I started really implementing my strength training, strength conditioning, and that's definitely helped a lot. Like, um, yeah, it's I've noticed now as I'm 27 now. I'm coming in, I'm getting my man strength. I definitely have a a bit of power with me, along with my technical ability.
And obviously you're with the Nolan brothers at the moment, but do you feel like in a couple fights with the zone getting, your recognition and your name out there, do you believe other promoters, I mean, you fought in front of the likes of Eddie Hearn in the past, do you feel like these other promoters will get on board with you?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm with the Nolans right now, and I'm happy with them. They're good guys, and they're putting a lot of work in, and they have a good vision. But yeah, that's the ultimate goal, to get onto the big stages. Do you know what I mean? And I think this fight this weekend, all going well, it'll set me up for that. Like, this is a real live opponent, good opponent. And on a big stage, if I put in a good performance, I think a lot of people will start to take notice.
Do you feel like you fight the best when you're under pressure?
Yeah, I always have. Even as an amateur, when I was fighting like national finals and stuff, or I've noticed when there's pressure, I've always kind of performed like, I come into my own. I enjoy it, like, I enjoy the atmosphere. The kind of it really helps me perform. So I'm hoping that'll be the case this weekend. There's a like I said, it's not as much pressure anymore because I've done a lot of my career, amateur and pro even now, and it's a privilege to have that kind of pressure. So I just try to enjoy it. But yeah, there'll be a lot of eyes on me now on this weekend. A lot of people interested in this fight, so there'll be a bit of pressure, and I think that'll help me perform even better.
And I'm sure, we've kind of touched upon your aspirations, but what would be maybe an end type of goal for your boxing career? What would be, the pinnacle that you'd like to achieve?
Well, the biggest thing is become a world champion. I think that's every fighter's goal, and obviously, I want to be able to support my family. That's the main thing. But I know they come hand in hand, you know. So yeah, the goal is to get into the world rankings this year and maybe next year, or the year after, get that world title fight.
And to be a guy who fights out in America most of the time, but also still has this really strong Irish fan base, where would be that of a dream venue for a world title fight for yourself?
Mm. Yeah, it's a funny one. There's a lot of places I want to fight. Obviously, being a fighter from Ireland, I'm out here now. I love to fight in Vegas. Obviously, Madison
Mhm.
Square Garden is a huge venue. I
Mhm.
love to get into. Being here now in Boston. There's a few good venues. Obviously, I'm fighting at one Fenway, TD Garden's another one. But yeah, I love to get a stadium fight in Galway too. It'd be nice, like in front of my own people. Maybe I know we were talking about it before. Maybe aim in DC Park.
Mhm.
It's a great spot for it. They have the Galway United. It's a great group of people and they have good support. And they back me too. So that would be one. But there's a lot of venues I'd like to fight in. There's no specific one for my world title fight I want to have it at. But I'd love to get a fight in all of them if I could.
And obviously, you touched upon how you called out the opponent in which was supposed to be fighting you this weekend. But, if you get a good emphatic victory this weekend, is there any names in which you'd be wanting to call out? Is there any names you are looking at, or is it just whoever comes available?
Yeah, it's not really my style to maybe call people out as much. I know it can help to maybe make a fight. The goal is just to keep pushing up. Obviously, I want the best in the division at some stage. Your Caleb Plans, Mungia, all these guys. Like they're the fights I'll want.
Mhm.
Um, but I know I have to be ready when the time comes. Like so, I kind of leave it to my team and who they think I'm ready for and the next step. So yeah, I leave it to them. I'm not too worried about it. I know I have a good team behind me, and they're pushing me in the right direction.
Amazing. And I'll leave with this final question. I really appreciate your time, Thomas. And that is just opening up the floor to you. Is there anything you want to shout out, promote, thank?
Well, I just want to say thanks to everybody that's supporting me so far. Saturday night live on the zone. I'm headlining Fenway Park. It's going to be a great event. Every fight's going to be good. My fight's going to it's the biggest test of my career. So everyone back home and people here that can't even make it, make sure you tune into the zone and watch me Saturday night.
Thomas, thank you very much again. I wish you the best of luck come Saturday night, and I can't wait to watch on the zone. I'm sure an emphatic knockout. And thank you very much again, my friend.